For as far back as I can remember, there's been this voice narrating my life. Everything I say, everything I do, even everything I think. I've tried telling other people about it, but no one seems to believe me. Since then, I've chosen to keep this part of me to myself, as to avoid being labeled crazy. Everyone lives their own unique experiences, and this, I guess, is mine. That's just life. Though lately I've noticed this narrator, whoever or whatever they might be, has gotten a bit dull. Their voice, once so full of life and pep, now seems almost drone-like. I mean, I don't blame them in the slightest. Day in, day out, over and over again for the past 4 years. The biggest excitement in my life was the raise I got a year ago. I completely understand how you feel, voice in my head. Painfully so. So I had a plan. You see, you'd think a narrator who was able to read the thoughts of the person they're narrating would foresee any plans they had in mind. But this time, this wasn't the case. After I got my raise, I started experimenting. Initially, the goal was to liven up my life a little. For example, back in my youth, the order in which you made your cereal was a huge deal. Cereal first or milk first? For me, it was cereal, and always has been. But one day, I decided to see if there was any benefit to milk first. Considering the significance of this life event, I fully expected the narrator to experience this journey with me. But they just said the usual, James made cereal for breakfast. That's when I noticed the inattentive nature of this omnipotent being. So I decided to do a bit more experimenting. I did things at work. Small things. I decided to put my pens in a pen holder instead of leaving them in my drawer. I would vary the quality in which I did my work. Sometimes I would intentionally leave things unfinished, other times performing to the best of my ability. I have an office job, but my boss works remotely, so if I were to get reprimanded, it would be through email. Throughout all of this, there was no change in what the narrator narrated. So one day, I did something a bit more extreme. On my usual walk to work, instead of the usual right turn I take, I continued straight on. For a few minutes, I could hear the narrator continue with the usual routine. Then, at long last, a change in that dull, uninspired tone. Wait, hold on, what are you doing? I kept walking. Please, don't go that way, I'm begging you. Or what? I thought. It can't be that bad, whatever's this way. Shit, the higher-ups are going to be pissed. I stopped in my tracks. Higher-ups? Listen, if you continue on that way, you're certainly going to be fired, or at the very least, severely reprimanded for showing up late to work. Hearing my narrator so desperately try to put me back on course has filled me with the determination to do the exact opposite. I pressed forward. What do you mean about the higher-ups? I asked. I felt a little lightheaded. I could hear a sigh. If I explain it to you, will you promise me to get back to your life? That depends. You both seem a little bored with that life, but that depends on the alternative. I could hear them hesitate. Listen, you've already heard more than what you're supposed to, and I can't say too much more right now. I understand you're bored and desperately want change. So do I. So here's my offer. And listen carefully, because I'll only say this once. Go back, and I'll figure out a way to explain without alerting the higher-ups. If you don't believe or trust me, there's no way I can stop you from doing what you're doing now. However, if you do that, the alternative will be much, much worse. So there I stood, at a crossroads. I couldn't find any fault with their proposition, but at the same time, if they wanted change as much as I do, why are they telling me to go back? Will they even explain what's going on to me? They've lied to me for the past 28 years of my life. Why change now? In order to avoid overthinking it, I went ahead and made my choice.